Hi, and thank you for watching. My name is Kaouter Essakkat, and in this presentation, I will be sharing insights from our research on how farmers decide whether to adopt AI-powered robotic weed management. Weeds are a major threat to global food security. They reduce crop yields by competing with crops for water, nutrients, and sunlight. To control them, farmers have relied heavily on herbicides, but overuse has led to a surge in herbicide-resistant weeds. In fact, the US leads globally in resistance cases with over 160 confirmed types. This creates billions of dollars in losses each year and highlights the urgent need for better weed control strategies. Recent advances in artificial intelligence have enabled the development of smart, semi-autonomous robots that can detect and remove weeds mechanically without chemicals. These robots offer a promising alternative. They reduce herbicide use, lower resistance pressure, and cut labor costs. Once commercially available, we expect their adoption to be hindered by several barriers such as cost, novelty, and social factor. So, what drives farmers to adopt this new technology? That's the central question of this research. We look at the role of technology features, resistance pressure, costs, and peer influence on adoption, and we also explore how different types of farmers think about change and how adoption might spread over time. Who are the farmers in our survey? So, we surveyed 251 crop producers from 12 Midwestern states in the spring of 2022. The map here shows where most responses come from, with a higher representation from states like Illinois, Minnesota, and Nebraska. In terms of demographics, the majority of respondents are over the age of 35, with nearly equal representation between 35 and 54 and 55 plus age groups. The sample is predominantly male, and about two-thirds have at least some college education. To understand what drives adoption, we used a method called the discrete choice experiment. In this survey, farmers were asked to choose between two weed control options or to stick with their current practices. Each option varied across five key features, which are represented in the table on the slide. These features included the effectiveness of the robot in removing weeds, the rental cost per acre, the presence of herbicide-resistant weeds on their own farm, the number of robot passes required, and the weed pressure on neighboring farms. By analyzing these choices, we were able to estimate how much farmers value each feature and the trade-off they're willing to make when considering robotic weed management. What are farmers really willing to pay for? Farmers are willing to pay for effectiveness. It's actually the most important driver of adoption. Farmers are willing to pay nearly $194 more per acre for every percentage point increase in the robot's weed control effectiveness. They're also willing to pay $28 more per acre for every percentage point increase in herbicide resistance on their own field, which shows that they're motivated to act when resistance becomes a serious concern. However, adoption drops when neighbors have weedy fields. Farmers are willing to pay $27 less per acre for every percentage point increase in neighbors' weed pressure. This suggests that they see less benefit in adopting if others around them are not managing their weeds properly. Lastly, the number of robotic passes during the season has no significant effect. We also identify two types of farmers. First, we have the first group, which makes up the 30% of the sample. So these farmers tend to believe that their weed management has little impact on others, and they're generally less likely to adopt the robots. They're also less likely to use cover crops, take risks, or earn off-farm income. However, the second group, which makes up around 70% of our sample, are more open to adopting the technology. They're motivated by the long-term resistance concerns and are more likely to see their actions as part of a larger system. They tend to be more innovative, more risk tolerant, and already engaged in sustainable practices such as cover crops. These differences shows that adoption strategies need to reflect the diversity of farmer mindsets. To understand how adoption evolves over time, we simulated the behavior of 193 farmers over a 10-year period. Each year, farmers decide whether to adopt the robotic technology based based on whether the benefits outweigh the costs, including the rental fee and their preference for sticking with the status quo. Importantly, this model is dynamic, meaning weed resistance, neighbor weediness, and overall weed pressure all change based on farmers' choice. As more farmers adopt, conditions improve, and that influences other. And that can be seen on the graphs on the slide, where adoption have started with 55 farmers and ended up with 167 adopters in year 10. So we found that adoption does rise sharply, especially when herbicide resistance increases and the robots become more effective. And the peer effects also matters. They also matter. Farmers are more likely to adopt when their neighbors' fields are less weedy, and in the later years, a few farmers disadopts or adoption stabilizes, and this often because resistance levels stabilize and the added benefit begins to feel less urgent. This work makes several important contributions. First, it supports policy and market strategies by identifying the key factors that drive adoption, which can help in setting the right price points and designing more effective incentive programs. Second, it informs outreach and extension efforts, showing that strategies need to be tailored to different types of farmers based on their priorities, risk tolerance, and planning horizon. Third, it highlights the importance of peer effects. Adoption can spread faster when neighboring weed conditions improve, creating a positive spillover benefit. And finally, it offers a novel approach that takes into account many behavioral insights such as the status quo bias. Thank you for watching my presentation.